Hey, everybody. My name is Bob Goodwin, and welcome to Career Club's LinkedIn Live. This is episode number 7, and really pleased and happy that you've taken a few minutes to join us today. I am very pleased to welcome our guest, Alicia Ramsdell, who will be on in just a second. Alicia is the founder and CEO of Mindful Career Paths and has specific expertise in helping early to mid-career professionals really define their career path. So I know this is going to be a great conversation. If you are a leader, a mentor, a parent, or if you happen to be somebody that's at that stage of your career, I know you're going to get a lot of value out of Alicia's expertise. Also, just want to make sure that if you haven't been to career.club, you're welcome to check us out, where we're using proven sales methods and tools to help folks find a career that matters to them. So this is a live stream. So if you happen to be joining us live, you are welcome to join in the comments. I'd love to see where people are dialing in from. And you can see I'm wearing a Norwegian sweater today because I'm freezing. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I think the temperature is about 10 degrees right now. So please feel free to let us know where you're listening in from, what the temperature is there. And importantly, and more seriously, if you've got comments or questions you'd like to direct towards Alicia and I, please do. Also want to say a very quick thank you to Heather Zinzer, who is in the background, making sure that all this live stream magic happens as it should. So with that, if we could have Alicia join us. And Alicia, welcome to our live stream today.
Thank you, Bob. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So as I was saying in the intro, and we'll get into this a little bit, you are the founder and CEO of Mindful Career Paths. What we usually do, and it's been kind of fun, is have just a little bit of an icebreaker session so people can get to know you a little bit better. So just starting off, where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in the suburbs of North Shore, Massachusetts. So just to talk a little bit about the cold weather, we're ready for the impending snowstorm this week. So I too will be wearing a sweater this week and all weekend.
Awesome. And just a little bit, where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Bentley University. And for those of you that don't know where that is, that's near Boston, Massachusetts. And I went there both for my undergraduate and graduate degree.
Awesome. Hey, just by the way, I'm watching people start to log in here. We've got Madrid, so that's pretty cool. Chilly Norway, and we've got some cold Michiganders too, it looks like. Tell me a little bit about your family.
So I am one of 4 girls in a big extended Italian family. Our lives, our emotions, our celebrations, our conversations are all held through a lot of hand gestures. So if you see me doing this and this throughout the conversation, it's a blessing and a curse.
4 girls, holy cow. That's interesting. Just kind of quickly, and I know we'll get into this in more detail in a minute, but just a little bit about your personal career journey.
Sure. So growing up, like I said before, from an Italian family, it was always about family first. So from a career perspective, it was always about financial stability and job security. That's what was stressed in my family. And I started in an area where I was good at from the very beginning, right? Mathematics, numbers. And I went on to receive an undergraduate degree in accounting, a graduate degree in taxation. And what I did in my role was play it safe with job security and tax rules specifically for 11 years in one wealth management firm and longer than that in other firms as well. The reality of it was I felt this lack of fulfillment in my career trajectory. So the flip side of that was I also felt guilty whenever I thought about career transition, right? Who am I to not think about family first and potentially go into something I was just starting out in and maybe have to start again at the bottom. So in the beginning of my career transition from accounting to career coaching, what I really did was I took a look and I said, all right, in my role, where do I get most excited when I come home from work and talk about it with my family, with colleagues, with peers? And I realized it was working with the college interns that were coming through that organization that came through my department. Yeah. And not necessarily on those, tax or accounting projects. It was always about the informal career development plans that we were going through with them, right? Setting them up with conversations with people at 19, 20 years old. They might not have the confidence to go knock on the door of a 15-year plus portfolio manager and ask more about their role, but setting up those conversations and just asking the questions. Why are you here? What's your reason for this role? Why did you choose this internship or this organization? So that was the start of it. And I also teach career development at the higher education industry. So the background really is I capitalized on the opportunities within my current role at that time to say, how can I learn more about the areas I thrive in? How can I get more experience in employee coaching, career coaching? I expanded my network in that space, talk to experts like yourself in the career expertise world, career coaching space. And from there, I received certifications in career coaching, and then I made that jump. And so enter in Mindful Career Path, and I'm now on my 3rd year in this business.
No, that's awesome. So first of all, we've got some interesting places where people are calling in from: the Caribbean and Grenada, Southern California, Dubai. You've got a neighbor in sunny Massachusetts, and another Cincinnati, and somebody from California. So it's one of the really cool things I think about, with a platform like this, is that we really can reach people kind of globally. And it's interesting in your background, what you're describing is, you came from a mathematics and a numbers place, but you really kind of pivoted into a relationship and people oriented role. So that's cool. And we're obviously going to dig in a little bit deeper on kind of what you're doing now, but outside of work, what kind of stuff, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about?
Sure. So circling back to my upbringing, right? I grew up and Italian food was everything. So my personal passion is spreading or trying to start conversation around the kitchen table, right? That's where I had my most important conversations when I was younger, and even still to this day with my own family. So my latest entrepreneurial endeavor, I think I have the entrepreneur bug at this point, is creating that unique Italian dining experience. And I'm trying to do that right around my own kitchen table, right? Inviting guests into my home and starting those conversations as I cook for them, post-pandemic when people can come inside again. But for now, I can do that in my backyard and create that quaint dining experience. And who knows, maybe I'll collaborate on both efforts and say, hey, do you want a networking conversation with a bunch of experts that you might not have otherwise been able to have that conversation with, and invite the networking opportunity as I cook Italian food for those.
Ooh, yeah. Well, you're welcome to network with me if you're cooking authentic Italian food, I promise. I'm there. Just tell me when and where. So I want to talk just a little bit more about your company, Mindful Career Path. One thing I would say to you and to the audience is I love the name of your company. Like, we start to kind of break down the elements of it. It's mindful, it's being very thoughtful, it's being intentional. One of the things that, I hear a lot in work is people needing to just like press pause, kind of step out of the activity for a while and just be reflective, maybe go through some tools and processes. And I know we're going to touch on that in a little bit. So I love mindful. And then career, obviously we've got Career Club. So it's more than just a job, right? It's really a career which spans, literally decades. And then path, like, no, there's a route that we're taking. It's not just random and I just sort of bounced off like a pinball, off the last thing that hit me. It's like, no, I've thought about it. I know what I want to do. And now I'm charting a path to get to where I want to be. So all that to say, I love the name of your company that way.
Thank you very much.
Of course. So, you kind of already sort of got on this a little bit during the icebreaker piece, but you do have a niche of college students, and then I don't know, maybe 0 to 10 years into someone's career. Can you talk just a little bit more about why that niche resonates with you, and maybe some of the needs that you see with that niche?
Sure. So when I first started out in public accounting, there was a partner in my office and he was a college adjunct professor outside of his full-time role. And kind of going along with the rest of my story, it wasn't so much the accounting and tax work that he was doing so successfully that impressed me. What impressed me was how he got to be at the ground floor with college students as they started out in their career story, right? Their career development process. So through him, I was able to network with and start teaching in the higher education as well at local universities. And another area, as I mentioned before, was through the wealth management firm that I was at for 11 years. They had a robust college internship program. And again, beyond the accounting and tax work I was doing, I was raising my hand more for opportunities for, with the college interns. So if HR sends out an email and says, hey, we're doing this program where we're having college interns learn more about the day-to-day of what people do, and it's, you know, in a conference setting, et cetera, I was raising my hand to be a part of those presentations, to be a part of those conversations. And really my own experiences, right? Why was I in a role for 15 years that I lacked fulfillment in? Was it strictly the financial stability? Was it strictly the job security? And if I could go back, what would I would have wanted to see as far as practical application goes, to get more career clarity a little bit earlier in my career? And not just for myself, but from my clients and for my own children. What would I want to see for them and the exercises and the practical application that they're doing at a much younger age?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just can't agree with you more. Like, we just, sometimes it seems like we just wander into our careers and, you know, kind of raise my hand, even, you know, guilty as charged. You know, I had a degree in finance, but I knew I didn't want to be a banker. And I was pretty sure I didn't want to cold call people, being at the time a stockbroker. And
Right.
so ended up taking a job with Xerox. I mean, it was great, learned awesome sales training, but I didn't grow up thinking, hey, I really want to sell copiers like that. Not sure that was my dreams. But, you know, as we were preparing for this call, one of the things that I thought, and we're really kind of get into some of the meat of the conversation here, you know, you've identified 3 buckets that I think will resonate with people. And again, for folks who are listening, whether live or on replay, you know, we're touching, again, whether I am one of those people myself or in a relationship as a manager or leader at a company. Maybe I'm formally or informally mentoring a younger person, right? I might be the parent of someone who's in that stage of life. You've identified 3 buckets that you've seen people tend to fall in. And I wonder if maybe you could kind of just identify each of those and then a little bit of a drill down on what you see in each.
Sure. So one of the buckets I see is you're in a rut, right? You stayed in a career based on a major that you picked when you were 18 years old, right? Maybe it was a family business. Maybe there was some sort of other expectation out there from friends or your community about what you were going to be doing going forward. The second one is unexpected, right? There's an organizational change, whether that's downsizing, mergers, acquisitions. Maybe you were laid off, unfortunately, due to, let's say, the COVID pandemic, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And the third bucket is self-reflection, right? This is all about the career transition bug, right? Maybe you see some of your peers, some of your colleagues having successes in going other places in their job search, right? Maybe it's a new company, maybe it's a new role, maybe it's they're being promoted. And the other piece of that really is the pandemic has slowed things down and given us this time to really think through what it is that we're doing and why are we doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that self-reflection period, I want to say, is one of the things I'm seeing the most of in my client base at this point.
Yeah, and I think that that's true, and I think it you know, kind of ties actually to the other 2, right? So I was on the phone recently with a client, and I ended up doing a LinkedIn post on this that like really did well, and it's on the rut. I'm in a rut, except the words in this case were I'm stuck. And that those words just like really resonate with people. They just feel like they're stuck. So, whether you are early in your career, and I think for a lot of people mid past in their career, it's like, yeah, I'm doing this, but it's just because this is what I've been doing. Right. And so they feel like they're in a rut. And then, obviously with the pandemic and things like that, layoffs, whatever happens, things all of a sudden are happening to me and I'm not in control. And now like, oh no, what am I going to do? So I have to start figuring something out. And then that can lead to, okay, I need to press the pause button and start doing the self-reflection, that you're talking about. One of the things that I think I've really heard a lot from people is before the pandemic, the frame was work and life fit into the frame somehow. Yeah, I know I'm commuting 3 hours every day. Yeah, I know I travel 70% of the time. Whatever, kind of, I'm sorry, I've got to go to email on the weekend, that kind of stuff. But the frame was work and my life fit into that. And clearly one of the outcomes, and I think, the great resignation, reshuffling, whatever we're calling it today, is people going, no, backwards. The frame is my life.
Yeah.
And where does work fit into my life? You want to riff on that for a sec?
Yeah, especially with the Great Resignation, I really see a combination of two things happening. One, it's the group of people that were hoping this day would come, right? Where it would be more people-centric, be more life outside, or maybe a holistic approach to life-centric. And now it's happening. Or the other thing is people that weren't necessarily looking for another opportunity, right? They have a good thing going. They're not super excited. They're not miserable. They're somewhere in the middle. I think they're seeing, wow, all of these other colleagues and peers are starting to look around at different opportunities and explore those avenues. Maybe there's something to that, right? So I really think the Great Resignation has brought about something that it wouldn't have just happened if we, stood up and said, this is going to happen now. I think it was, sadly, a pandemic happened, but I think the pandemic forced it into play, which I don't necessarily think that component of that result of the pandemic is a bad thing.
Yeah. And I think another force that's acting on people is the super hot job market, right?
Yeah.
And there's more openings than there are people to fill the openings. And so people are, for maybe the first time in their career, have choices. But if I don't know what I want to choose, then that's a different weird place to be. But it all kind of gets back to, all right, have I taken the time to really be self-reflective? What are my values? Like, what's really important? And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but figuring out some of those things so that I've got a rubric to kind of now run, different options through to say, hey, I could go do that, but it's maybe not the best fit for me, versus knowing what a home run looks like, because you've taken the time to identify what a home run for you might look like. So, and by the way, I want to, remind people, you're welcome to drop some questions or comments in the comments section, and we'll do our best to kind of pay attention to that as well with Heather's able help. So, again, obviously we're advocating that folks take a more mindful approach to their career choices. You have a framework that I think will be, pretty helpful for listeners, to kind of get acquainted with, and I know there's sort of a high level client process that you take people through. Do you mind starting to describe that a bit?
Sure. When I work with clients, the majority of the clients these are my top 3 exercises that I like to work through with my clients, and really, again, focusing around that career clarity, that career exploration. So the first one is the career achievements portfolio. We can't really move forward without realizing where we've come from. And I mean that from a career standpoint. Where have your successes been, right? Whether you loved it or not, listing out all of your career successes. So if you were a senior in college, looking back, starting senior year all the way back through freshman year, what were some of your educational achievements along the way, as well as your internship achievements? Or if you were somewhere, let's call it 5 to 8 years into your career, let's look back 5 years and say, hey, where are some of my achievements been? And list them out. If you think of an Excel spreadsheet as an example, listing out what were your roles, what specific achievements did you have? And it doesn't have to be this glorified achievement that you won this highest honor. It could be, I led a team of 3 people to successfully complete this project or this coursework, right? And then the next step really is saying, all right, well, what's the bigger category of that? So if you're talking about leading a team of 3, it could be leadership, or that bigger category could be project management.
Yeah.
And then really the last part of that is, let's rank those, right? Let's give it a 3 or 1 to a 3, right? A 3 being, I was successful at it and I want to do more of it because I enjoyed it. A 2 being somewhere in the middle, and a 1 being, yes, I'm proud that I was successful at this, but it's not something I really care to learn more about or do more of if I can possibly help it.
So that's very interesting. I want to play that back real quick. So first thing is kind of listing out things. And just in my experience, people, until they're usually in a resume writing phase of a job search, don't do a very good job of this. And so I would highly recommend people just fire up a Google Doc or something to where you can just very easily just start to memorialize things in the moment, because I forget stuff and then we're on to the next project and we kind of forgot what we just did, and we're on to the next thing that's on fire, and maybe don't do that. Sometimes it's really helpful to have a third party help kind of tease some of these things out of us. And people are like, I guess that was awesome. I hadn't thought of it that way. So, but what you really did, Susan, was you led a team of 3 people right? I guess that is true. So first thing is kind of getting them listed out. Then I heard you say, then kind of categorize them. Yep. So it could be leadership, collaboration, project management, sales, whatever kind of different attributes those accomplishments might fit in. And then the third thing, if I'm following you, was then kind of prioritize them against what you enjoy doing. Where do you get satisfaction in work? And I think that's a really helpful. I haven't heard somebody really kind of go through that whole framework before. So I think that that's really helpful. On the categorization thing, how might that align with job descriptions or keywords or things like that?
Yeah, so what you're going to do, and we can talk more about it and then the next exercise, but what you're going to do is you're going to say leadership, project management. When you do, remember how I said at the end, you're going to rank what you liked, middle, and not so much. I want you to take out and just filter all of the 3s. So the areas where you were successful, the areas where you enjoyed doing the work and want to see more of. When you filter them all out, what you'll see most likely is a common thread through all of those specific achievements, but you'll see the common thread through the broader categories. Wow, the majority of my 3s relate to leadership and project management. I'm just using this as an example. But when you then transition to looking over at job descriptions, you can then say, all right, in this job description, is the majority of the responsibilities surrounding leadership and also project management? And if not, maybe that's not the appropriate fit, right? And you can move on to looking at, another job description and so forth. But this works really well into the next exercise, if you're okay with me moving on to that.
No, let's do it, please.
Okay. So the next exercise is creating the ideal job description, right? We're all unique individuals, right? So I don't think 10 of us could look at one specific job description and say, yep, this is all the responsibilities I would want. So what I work with clients is to say, when you think about a title, and let's say you want to be a project manager could look different across the board at 10 different companies. It could all have the same title, but it could look different for each company and what the responsibilities would be. So if you take, let's call it 10 job descriptions that say project manager at the top. If you look at the responsibilities and you go through and say, okay, one by one, here's one responsibility. When you read that, think, would I want to go to work and do this every day? Does this intrigue me? Yes? All right, take that and copy it over onto a blank Word document. And as continue along. If a job responsibility doesn't excite you, leave it alone. And if it does intrigue you to want to do that every day in your career, place it onto this blank Word document. At the end of this exercise, what you're going to have is, let's call it a list of 18 to 20 responsibilities that you might be able to combine some if they're pretty similar. You're going to have a list of job responsibilities, and this is your ideal job description. When you go into a networking conversation, or whether it's an informational interview or just someone like with your neighbor, you could even bring this document with you and turn it around and say, hey, if I could create my own job, this would be my ideal job description, right? In your company, what is this role called, right? And they can tell you. And if, hey, do you know anybody that does this in your organization? And whether they do or they don't, they might be able to have you have a conversation with somebody in that organization that does this role, or maybe they know a colleague outside of that organization that does a role similar and that you could have a conversation with. But it sets up introductions, and you're now clearly articulating what it is you want, rather than just saying, I want to be a project manager, right? Because many people could say those two words and it means something different.
Well, I mean, I think this is phenomenal advice because, and I really appreciate you bringing it up in the context of like network or informational interviews, is, people will go into these kinds of conversations and not have enough clarity in what they think they're looking for. And now if you're like working with a career coach or a mentor, that's okay. Like, I'm still in the discovery phase of trying to figure this out. But networking is so much more effective and efficient when you can help the person you're talking to know what the target looks like. And I think also, secondly, it's a highly differentiated behavior. I love what you said, like, bringing like your document. Like, I went through an exercise and kind of listed these things out. And here's what I learned about, what intrigues me, what I'm good at. And it would be really helpful to know, like you just said, in this role play, what's that job called here?
Right.
And how do you guys value a role like that here?
Yeah.
Well, we've got a quick question here, Alicia. I don't want to get too far off of the topic, but this is from Nadeem, and says, I believe that dealing with people who need career guidance in different regions around the world have different challenges. Kind of what's our understanding of the ones most difficult challenge that may be faced by career coaches everywhere, irrespective of countries or culture, and he's saying the most common challenge he sees is the lack of basic understanding about even the role that a career coach might play. So, whether it's, do I need a career coach at all, or within a coaching exercise, are there like a most common challenge that you see?
To be honest, I think the biggest challenge starts internally. And that, when I say that, I mean, are you motivated to go to that next level, to make that move? Because if the motivation, just say, for instance, I'm a student, right? And I have a teacher. Let's say I have the best teacher in the world. If I'm with the best teacher in the world and I'm a student, but I lack the motivation to be successful in this class, then it doesn't matter if I have the best teacher in the world. I'm probably still going to be where I started at the beginning of the semester. Yeah. So I think the lack of motivation is always comes into play, whether you're going to be successful or not. Yeah. If that answers the question.
Super helpful. And thank you, Nadeem, for the question. So let's kind of stay on theme here. So you kind of, I think that we kind of did the career portfolio piece, and then where else would you like to go?
Sure. So the job framework, once that's created, you can then work back with the career portfolio to say, all right, these are my ideal responsibilities. And then when you look at your achievements, that career portfolio, you can say, what achievements have I had that can align with these ideal responsibilities? If this is an ideal responsibility, have I ever been successful in the past in doing something similar to that? Maybe that broader category, that leadership, that project management. And then the last exercise that I think is super powerful, and this probably resonates more with people that have been in their field for, let's call it 5 to 10 years, is the 4-quadrant exercise. And Heather, I think you have that queued up as well. And really what this looks like is 4 quadrants, as we can see. Just writing down, top left quadrant, all right? What am I knowledgeable in? What am I knowledgeable in and want to do more of, right? The bottom left quadrant. And what am I not so knowledgeable in, but want to learn more about and am excited to do every day in my job? So those are your learning opportunities. Top right quadrant. What am I knowledgeable in, but don't really care to do more of in my career? And then that bottom quadrant is, what have I been doing I'm not super knowledgeable in, and I really don't care to learn more about it? And what this can do for conversations with management is, if you have, obviously we have performance evaluations every year potentially, or every, semi-annual, but even if you have one-on-one weekly conversations or maybe quarterly conversations with your management to say, hey, I'm really excited about this project that I'm working on. I love it. I'm learning a lot, and I'd like to do more of it. Are there other projects out there that I can do more of that look like this? Or, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this. I know there's a project coming up about this subject. I'm interested to know about more learning opportunities, then also know if I can, piggyback off of someone who is an expert in this in this particular subject matter, so that I can follow suit in this project. And then again, the right side is more about what you don't want to see more of. So if they ask for raise your hand if you want to do a project like this, you don't have to raise your hand to do something just to get the credit for doing something.
This is awesome. Few just like immediate observations with this. One is it can clearly start to identify professional development opportunities, right? I'm really interested in this to be, so I'd like to, invest some time in that. Looking at this with your manager, I think is awesome, because again, it's like I've put thought against this. And I'm somebody worth investing in, and I want to invest in myself. And, I want to see how the company can help me do this. The other place that it kind of takes my mind is, what a great way to identify a mentor within the company or outside of the company. So like, again, doing whether it's in the company, and it's like, well, great, let me hook you up with Julie, who's the VP of this area. Well, now I've got an executive advocate who's got a vested interest in me. Or outside of the company and doing networking. I mean, there are a lot of people who want to help other folks and would be, honored to be somebody's mentor, and somebody reached out to you to ask for this level of help. I would, I'm a salesperson at heart. So reaching out to people I don't know is not hard for me. It's second nature. I actually enjoy it, which is weird. But for other people, which is probably most people, that's an unnatural behavior. Like you really have to screw your courage up to go do that. But I'm just telling people, like, if you went through an exercise like this, identified pretty specifically, like, I'm really trying to grow in these areas. And it could be soft skills too. It's not necessarily hard skills. Team building, cross-functional collaboration, other things that aren't just, hey, I want to be better at digital marketing. I think has a lot of value for people. So, I think this is just a fantastic exercise.
Thank you.
So Daniel's got a question, and thank you, because this is like spot on to the theme for today, where he's saying, I'm not a career coach, but I've started mentoring colleagues who are earlier in their careers. Good on you. Would you give me the same advice as a mentor and not a career coach?
Advice meaning as far as the exercises that are completed?
Daniel? It's your turn to say, I think that's what he means. Let's go with that assumption while he's maybe
sure. So Daniel, thank you for the question. From a standpoint of a mentor or a career coach, right? It's not necessarily about the title of who we are. It's more about the fact that you're willing and you want to help somebody else in their early stages of the career. I think these types of exercises would be super beneficial to the people that you're working with. And so to answer your question, yes, I would give the same advice, even as a mentor, using these exercises.
Yeah. So Daniel, I mean, I thought it was a very insightful question because, that was a big part of what we were hoping to tee up with today's conversation is this isn't a call for career coaches. This is a call for people who are mentors, parents, leaders of kind of like the next generation of talent coming through, and how do we help them, maximize their career paths and be mindful about it to your topic. So
Hi, Alicia. Bob
Hello.
is fixing his end for that as well.
Okay.
But I know that he was addressing Hunter's comment while he was doing that.
Okay.
So that's such a cool framework to bring into discussions with potential employers. So much more tangible and genuine than most interviews, which is so welcome from the employer perspective. 100% Hunter. And Alicia, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I appreciate the fact that you pointed that out, Hunter. And again, it really just brings something to the discussion to allow people to have, the talking points that they're going to need to make that career development move, and whatever that is, career development or career growth for these employees. And I think bringing up those talking points can be a challenge at first, but when you put it into a framework like this, that seems pretty basic once we start talking about it. I think that's where you see the progress moving forward.
hello.
Bob is back.
Whoa, there we go. Cool. Okay. Am I doing that?
Yeah.
Let's try this.
There we go. And yep. You are muted, Bob. We love this day and age with technical issues, but we are working on it. Nope. And Alicia, I know that I shared the resources page, and I'll go ahead and share that again.
Sure.
We talked about, and can you remind us the 3 exercises that we went through together? What those are
Sure.
called?
Yes, so there's the career achievements portfolio where you walk through your past and then rank them to say whether you enjoyed them in addition to succeeding in them. There's the job framework, or the ideal job description that's created unique to yourself. And then there's also the 4-quadrant exercise, which is on my Mindful Career Path website under the resources tab.
That's great. That's great. And then we also have a question from YouTube. Can you share an example of a client you have worked with? So I know that we talked about clients. It sounds like a lot of the clients that you typically work with, Alicia, are earlier on in their career, but also later on as well. And I know that we've talked about in the context of mentorship and of either being parents or mentors or leaders of these individuals, but talk a little bit more about your experience.
Sure. So one particular individual I'm thinking of, he was a professional. He was 7 years at the same company, and he felt stuck, right? He felt like he had reached this glass ceiling, which we sometimes hear. So what we did was we talked through his current job description. We said, okay, what were you hired to do? What were your responsibilities that you were hired for? We figured out, are you doing what you were hired to do? If not, why? And we can get into that later. But if you were doing those responsibilities, then we'd ask the question, all right, what value are you adding? And then the next would be, how what you are doing, does that add to the company's mission or the values of the organization, which is really why you are hired, right? You're adding value to the organization itself. And then also, do you enjoy the responsibilities that you're doing? And then from there saying, all right, well, what future projects are available or that you're aware of that you could raise your hand and say, you know what, I really want to get involved in that. So from that point, we said, okay, this is what I was hired to do. This is what I am doing. I'm not doing, what value I'm adding, and do I enjoy it? Then next, we walk through some of the above processes that we've already mentioned. So the career achievement portfolio and the 4-quadrant exercise. And really what that did is allowed us to hyper focus into the successes this individual has had so far. So, you know, what areas did he feel like he was making an impact in? And that was key for him. We hear the term burnout, and sometimes we relate it back to how many hours you're working, but rather, it's not so much the hours you're working, but whether or not you feel as though you're making an impact in those working hours. And so that was really the bottom line for this particular client. He was contemplating, what's my career legacy going to be here at this organization? And did he feel like he was making an impact? So he contemplated both options, leaving and staying. And it's not always about best option is leaving. So ultimately what he did was he chose to stay in that organization. And it was really through our exercises that he gained clarity in what he was doing, what value he was adding, what his impact was, and then what learning opportunities were available to him, and any other projects and responsibilities he could take on to continue to be successful and feel fulfilled. And how he did that was with these exercises, his newfound voice, his newfound confidence. His message clearly was resonating with his manager, his senior leadership, and his one-on-one meetings, and through his personal, his performance evaluations at the end of the year and semi-annual. So he found that newfound fulfillment in his old role. It was based on his ability to clearly articulate where he was thriving, what he wanted to see more of, and that was really the big success that he had. And taking it one step further, there was a lot of, I would call it, unfair pressure on management to have all of the answers for their day-to-day, but then also have all of the assumed answers for their employees' growth. And I think the reality is that the onus should be shared, right? Employees and management alike are responsible for acknowledging the career development strategies or the growth opportunities, and both parties really need to be held accountable.
That's okay. I know Bob's having a little bit of feedback as well, so I'm going to step in for that, Bob. Bob had said, so I like previously stated, like you didn't want to leave this, like you didn't need to leave this company. Just because you didn't need to leave this company doesn't mean that that's the best opportunity for you in the next step in your career. And those exercises you walked us through have really helped us with tangible experiences and what we want to do forward in our career. So no, I appreciate that, Alicia. And Bob, I'm going to try to unmute you one more time. Otherwise, we may have to just look at your pretty face. Let's see if you have that. Oh, okay, you still have that feedback. I know that we are reaching the end of the time, so we're kind of trying to wrap things up. So when we're talking about the 3 main takeaways for everybody listening either live or on playback, what would those 3 main takeaways be?
So number one, financial stability is very important. And that's what I started with telling you about financial stability and job security. Financial stability is still very important, and I really don't think anyone can dispute that. So that's number one. The second one really is that, in playing off of financial stability, career fulfillment with financial stability is possible. And I really think it should be a requirement for our mental employee well-being, right, and throughout our careers. And the third, we live in an age where everybody's successes are placed on social media, and that can feel overwhelming. It can feel daunting, like, oh, this person's having this success and this person's having this success, but I'm not really feeling that I'm having that immediate success, right? That instant gratification. But just remember, the quote unquote overnight career success stories took years to happen, and it was a one step at a time approach.
Yeah, one thing I like to say is that career is the long game. So whether you're somebody coming out of college or whether you're 15 years into your experience, the relationships that you've built and the networking that you've done and the career path that you've taken will play into your next opportunity. So with mine and Bob's experience, I'll kind of link that back. Is Bob helped me through as more of a mentor through my career. What was it, 5 to 7 years ago, Bob? And now I'm working for Bob. So it really, that relationship that we built and the steps that I took between meeting Bob and today helped me, helped loop back. That experience helped me be where I am now. So you're right. It's not, you don't have that instant fulfillment. You don't have the overnight success. But what you're doing now impacts your future.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And Daniel said, I think that's so relevant for today in dealing with the Great Resignation, the ability to coach people to take a fresh look at opportunities within their own companies can be a great solution to keep great talent. Yes. 100%.
Daniel, yeah, and I really appreciate that comment, because it sometimes felt like, I'm feeling that lackluster feeling, and I don't know how to deal with it. And I think the best option is I'm just going to leave and take the same role in another company. And I think that lack of fulfillment carries over, even if the grass looks greener on the other side. So I appreciate your point of view.
Yeah. And when we're talking about the context of today and looking at this from a mentor role and a mentor almost becoming career coach, is going through those steps proactively with those that you're mentoring will help keep that talent. Because if I am in that position and I may be looking somewhere else for an opportunity, but it may be, I may have a similar opportunity within the company that I like, I just don't know it's available because I didn't have the mentorship within my leaders, or I didn't know, and the leaders didn't know where I wanted to go. So I think that kind of loops back around as well.
Yeah.
So I know that we wanted to kind of loop back around, and just as a reminder, everybody, for the materials that we went over today, mindfulcareerpath.com/resources. You'll find PDFs and materials for some of these exercises that we went through today. I appreciate everybody being here. I am sorry that Bob isn't able to say goodbye. I know we have that feedback going on, but I'm happy that I was able to hop in. And Alicia, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and for giving us materials to be able to use for ourselves or others in the future. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I appreciate this opportunity to have this conversation. And for anyone that wants to get in touch with me, I'm more than happy to have more of this conversation with them or individuals that they might know. So check out mindfulcareerpath.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, and also feel free to email me, Alicia Ramsdell at mindfulcareerpath.com. So thank you again, Bob. I'm sorry that that you don't have, see, now you can be Italian, just talk with your hands.
There you go. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.